Never waste a good crisis. And when it comes to the economic crisis, don't waste it when it can have a very positive impact.
You never want a serious crisis to go to waste.
The way we're going to win over the long term is not just militarily. We've got to win over hearts and minds. And what that means is we've got to invest in countries that have no educational infrastructure and have no means for young people to get ahead. We've got to give them a stake in creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
Stay tuned for politics and religion.
Well, the number one issue that the people who want to push us into one world government have been writing is the issue of global warming. What they say is that mankind, through the emission of CO2, is causing the temperatures of the earth to rise, and thus it will melt the ice caps, eventually raising the levels of the oceans, swamping much land that is presently occupied by human beings and rendering it uninhabitable. Now, that's what their theory is. It's called climate change, or more accurately, global warming. We know there's climate change. Climate's always changing, so that's irrelevant. But if, in fact, mankind, with its dramatic rise in population over the last 100 years, remember, early 20th century, 1.5 billion people on this earth. Today, 6.8 billion people. So we've risen by 5 billion human beings in the last 100 years. From the beginning of recorded human history until the early 20th century, 1.5 billion population. That was our max at the beginning of the 20th century. But in the last 100 years, we've gone 5 billion more. So you talk about growing pains. Well, yeah, we do have them. And a lot of people are saying we are over-maxing the world's population. However, is that really true? Is it not true? Well, those people who believe we have to have world government, and there are some among us who think there has to be a reduction of the world's population. I mean, there's all kinds of radical theories out there. Perhaps we need to enforce birth control. That's what they do in China. They have a one-child policy, and if you have more than one, there are stiff tax penalties for doing that, and sometimes forced abortions in that totalitarian state. So, looking at this whole spectrum, the people who believe in global government, they're using the excuse of global warming. However, now, with the publishing of the emails from the East Anglia University in Great Britain, the Center for a lot of the study about global warming in particular, with the release of the emails and with the disclosure that some of the key scientists there were purposely trying to rig the data to make global warming appear even when we moved into a time of temperature decline. They actually use the term, hide the decline. Well, there's a couple more articles appearing today because one of their big arguments has been the melting of the glaciers at Himalaya. However, now then, it's found out that all this they've been publishing about that is not true. It was never put through the proper scientific scrutiny, and that it actually came from an interview which was never peer-reviewed in scientific journals. And now then, the International Panel on Climate Change, which is from the United Nations, has admitted that the melting of Himalayan glaciers is simply a mistake that should never been taken as fact, but it's been published already in all of their documents. This has been one of their key arguments, that global warming is a fact. So now we have all these emails saying we're going to hide the decline. We may have to delete emails if they try to force us to make our data public, and you may have to tell others to delete their emails on this particular subject. So when you have all those kinds of things happening at the highest levels, it appears quite obvious that there is a political agenda that the global warming or global cooling, we don't want the truth about that. We only want that to be believed because that then allows the global governance structures to put in place a one world governmental system, which they are dying to do. They desperately want to put in a one world government because they believe that is the answer to the problems of the world. Well, at the same time, Al Gore's office has now stated that his climate spin during his speech at Copenhagen last month was a mistake as well. Let me see if I can give you that particular bit of information. Dr. Maslowski, whom Al Gore quoted, said his projections that Al Gore said meant that the ice caps would totally melt by the year 2020 are simply not true, that he never said it. And so now they're having to retract. What's going on here? Why are they exaggerating? Why are they having to issue apologies? We really need to know the answer to that question. 10 years